your shadow, your radiance, your pain into resilience, your life being lived. I'm Danielle Laporte, and I believe in the genius of your heart, and this is With Love, Danielle. Hello, my loves. Welcome to With Love, Danielle. I thought we would talk about something magnificent and all-encompassing this session. Me. You know those Instagram posts where someone says, hey, there's been a lot of new followers recently, and you're never quite sure if there really has been an influx of new followers, but they use the opportunity to say, I thought since there's so many new people coming to check me out, let me catch you up on who I am. I thought maybe it's time to do that. And I don't really know if I've had an influx of a lot of newness, although there's been a lot of internal newness. And if we look at it in concentric circles, my business and life are incredibly new. And I'm sure it will lead to lots of expansion and new people. But just felt like anchoring in case, you know, it's like we're having tea together. And did you remember that I used to do that? And look how much I've changed and how much we've changed together. And you know, I should just press pause here. Don't you press pause, I'll press pause. And say to all the OGs, the original gangsters, the original ones of group love. Actually, I'm going to change the G for being group love. Original ones of group love who have been hanging out with me for the last decade. Oh, it makes me a little teary, actually. Thank you for still being here. Considering that I don't take one click or subscription or audio download or podcast episode listen for granted, really, really. And that you're still here with all of my genius and my missteps in one big, beautiful mosaic. From all the days where I used to just be a walking F-bomb merging with a truth bomb to now just gentle and more integrated and still struggling and gliding all in the same day. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It all started, where did it all start? You know, I got fired from my own company and I created the Fire Starter Sessions, and it was a digital program that I sold for $150 because when you talk to people about business and money, you can charge more. And I recorded it in my attic with GarageBand. Is that even still a thing? An iMovie? What? And put it for sale before it was even finished and officially launched. I didn't even have like a velvet rope marketing offer. I just like, hey, I'm going to make this thing and I'm totally going to launch it on this day. And if you want to buy it now, you can. And people did. And that turned into a book, the Fire Starter Sessions, which if I had to change that, I'd kind of dial back the really loud, big, giant black Helvetica font. I would have gone with Helvetica New and made it just a little more subtle. But I love it. I love it still. I love all my stuff, even though, you know, I've said so many times that I think I would love to burn everything I made from like before today. But I think even that's changing, you know, like I stand by my stuff that's not accurate in terms of esoteric principles. I stand by my mouthiness. I stand by my ego. I stand by my, maybe a little too brazen. I stand by my love. I stand by, and by stand by, I mean, I embrace, I love, I have room for my inner Joan Jett and my queen and my heart. Yeah, my heart, my courage. You know what? I have had the heart energy, also known as courage, to evolve in public. And that is not easy, but it's fun. I got to tell you, it's fun. It's fun because I feel like it's more powerful to evolve, not more powerful than anybody who doesn't have this platform stuff going on, but it's been quite powerful for me in terms of learning and growth and building my resilience to make my mistakes publicly and to move into my fuller self, my fuller self as an higher self more publicly, because I think me being transparent about things creates an awareness of more common ground. Like if I got anxiety and some panic attacks and I can pull off leading a team and find the right filter on Instagram, so can you too. Okay, who am I really? Who am I? Who am I to talk about consciousness? I think it's useful to know, if you care, and you probably care because you're here. Thank you. If you really care, subscribe and leave lots of stars and reviews and stuff. And subscribe to my stuff on my site. How's that for Queen? Just come on, subscribe to my stuff, would you? Because it's more intimate over on daniellelaporte.com/subscribe. And I can get you something wisdom-esque on Wednesdays. And then I'm doing the sacred weekends. I've got this really fun post that comes out on Fridays. Everything's free, where it's all lifestyle-y and girlfriend and like, here's a documentary and let me talk about this particular oil and this eco-friendly linen. And by the way, here's a prayer that will help you connect with the infinite. Where was I? It's useful to know what informs my perspective. I have not had a near-death experience, although, I've wanted one. Although if the universe is listening, which it always is, and my subconscious is definitely listening, we can just press pause on that desire. I do not need to have a near-death experience. I'm good. I like it the way it's going. I do not come from a lineage of gurus. I hope that's obvious. I just barely come from Windsor, Ontario, meaning I lived in Essex County in really small towns. I lived in Bell River and went to nursery school there and kind of learned to speak a little bit of French. And I spent most of my childhood in a very small town on the third concession of the Maidstone Township called Woodsley. I went to a grade school called St. John's. There were 300 people. That's where I learned how to be a really good or a really bad Catholic, depending on how you look at it. I'm not ordained in any religion. Even though I consider myself an armchair Buddhist, on a good day, I've not made any formal vows to Buddhism or to anything formal, really. I've made a very formal, very deep, very intimate, all-encompassing vow to live from the heart. I have made the same depth of vow to my son, to be here for him in all incarnations, really. Yeah, here and beyond. And I am emerging in the vow that I make to my partner. His name is Will, and I love him. I love him. Oh, so in love with that guy. And I've definitely vowed to be a source of all forms of support as required and devotion to a handful of people in my life. Parents and VS, the energy healer who's been with me by my side, educating me, supporting me, protecting me for 8 years, just in this lifetime alone. And I feel avowed to whoever is on my team in its current incarnation to help them live whole, healthy, heart-centered lives, prosperous lives, yeah. I've never done a 3-year retreat. I've thought of it, but not for very long. I don't have a PhD. In fact, I never went to school, higher education. I mean, my higher education is life, education of the higher self. I graduated from high school, and that was it. Not a PhD, nor do I play one on Instagram. I used to run a think tank in Washington, D.C. It sounds fancy, and it kind of was. I became a publicist. I had a fax machine. I sent out press releases. I got people on radio and television, and I started representing different futurists, people who think in systematic methodological ways about future scenarios and how they might converge or in some cases collapse. Those are actual lines that I wrote for the homepage of the think tank that I was executive director of. And that came from representing the futurists and getting in that kind of industry. I've had a lot of therapy, as you know. I've had Jungian therapy. I have had Gestalt therapy. I've had a Jewish Buddhist psychotherapist. Most of my girlfriends have had a ton of therapy. So I feel like I get therapy by proxy. We all get together after our therapy sessions. There's a lot of voice memos. So what did she say? What did your therapist say about him projecting all that stuff onto you? Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes. So hang out with people who have had therapy. It'll save you a lot of money on therapy. I have had a bona fide dark night of the soul. Bona fide as determined by who? Me, because I was in it. You think you've had a dark night of the soul, during divorce and miscarriage and cancel culture and those kinds of things. But for me, those experiences were just really intense challenges that helped me burn away things that I didn't know so I could see who I really am. Dark Night of the Soul actually has some characteristics to it, in my experience and in my research of it, that it really is a dissolution of identity. You do not know who you are at the time, and you definitely have no idea who you're going to be when you get to the other side, and you question if you will get to the other side. And that is the nature of the hell of the dark night. You don't know how long it's going to last. You think it might last forever, and you don't know what it's going to look like if you crawl out of that fire. For me, it looked like panic attacks and a lot of anxiety, suicidal ideation. So for a period of time of, it was about a year. My psychotherapist, Ann Davin, called it a living death. And she nailed it. I was alive, but I felt like I was dying. I have worked with shamans. I have worked with energy healers. I have been healed. I've been physically healed, energetically healed by people who have walked through greater fires and been much more mystically educated than I am at this time in my life. There's one healer in particular who's been my greatest teacher, and that is VS. She informs a lot of my perspectives. She is really the lyrics in all of the meditations and visualizations that are in my offering now at daniellelaporte.com. And I'm very devoted to her. She lives a very, very private, monk-like life. And her own training and the training she gives me influences almost all of my esoteric perspective at this point. She changed my life. I think she saved my life, actually. I consult with her on everything from karma to energy cleansing. If I want to create an offering on relationships or the nervous system, I will weave in her metaphysical teachings because I want to get it right. Yeah, so the things I do, it's not just this, color. We're going to use this color frequency because it's pretty. It's kind of verified and sanctioned by VS, who has experience and perspective in multi-spiritual points of view and methodologies and ideologies. And I know her to be a very powerful, heart-centered, blessed teacher. I myself have had some pretty significant mystical experiences in this lifetime. I don't talk about all of them, and I don't talk about my mystical experiences very much, mostly because they feel very, it's beyond words, They feel deeply personal. I don't want to trot them out to be showy with them, but I have touched the infinite a few times, but I'm still here. And I have seen my soul, and I still got to do my laundry. And I still post to Instagram, even though I've had that one taste. I consider myself a seeker, still with a capital seeker. I'm actually trying to seek less and be more. And I don't even consider myself a writer, even though it is the thrust of my career. I have written 5 books now, and there are more to come, and many courses, and many more courses to come. And I write prolifically within the Heart-Centered membership. Essentially, I'm a seeker that talks about what I have found, everything I'm on my soapbox about, unabashedly on my soapbox, is coming from lived experience. Of course, there are things that I have been taught, and it's just pure knowledge, but I only convey knowledge if I resonate with it. And then everything else, like I went through it, I got it, I feel it, I know it to be true. I was a really religious child. I was such, baby Danielle, really loved Jesus. I was raised Catholic. I wanted to marry Jesus. But then I bolted from Catholicism, mostly when I got out of Catholic high school, and I burned my kilt. I had my school uniform. I actually was the kid that voted for school uniforms and had a little say in choosing them. I wanted to get just the right plaid, But once I got out of high school and, really stepped into my sovereignty, I just went all out into the new age, Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer. And what I was doing was expanding my perspective, tapping into ideologies that I still use now, but I was also just replacing the punitive model of a Christian deity, a God in the sky, with wellness culture. So I swapped the 10 Commandments and I replaced those with karma, but more specifically with the terror of creating more karma or not burning my karma. Yeah. And that's really when I came to the realization, didn't happen overnight, that's for sure, that self-help could be another form of self-criticism. And that's when I wrote White Hot Truth. I still really love White Hot Truth. In fact, it's one of my favorite offerings is the audio version of White Hot Truth. And you can get that in my shop. I think the audio version is like only $15, but don't quote me on that. But it's really reasonable. And I'm really fucking funny in White Hot Truth. I swear in it, even though you may have noticed. I've talked about swearing way fucking less than I used to. I'm most well known at this stage, but the story of my life will not end this way. I'm most well known for the book called The Desire Map, which is really a methodology. And like 400,000 people have gone through the Desire Map process. I turned that into a day planner system. And side note, I'm not making 100% promise right now, but I am working on coming out with my day planner system again, in print, in your hands. It will be the heart-centered day planner, I think. But I'm going to resurrect it because I miss it. Don't you miss it? A lot of people miss it. Desire Map also turned into a coaching and facilitator curriculum. And that was being used in 30 countries. We had like 400 plus people. And I came to the awareness that the central question of Desire Map was, how do you want to feel? And a new question emerged from my dark night and my mystical research and training. And that new question is, what do I want to embody? It became very clear that feelings and emotions are from the subconscious self, the unconscious self, whereas virtues and soul qualities come when we're aligned with the higher self. One of the most daring moves I've made as a leader was I asked my Desire Map facilitator community, who'd been with me for, a handful of years, to come with me into a new methodology and a new brand and a new expression. And they did. It was quite amazing. So now we have the Heart-Centered Leadership Program. And I've still got a few hundred coaches in there, facilitators, youth counselors, yoga teachers, HR directors who are using this curriculum to lead their teams to host workshops online, virtually, in person, to have conversation circles. It's really beautiful. And that is growing. That is actually, I think, one of the most quickly growing aspects of everything in the Danielle universe. And just like everybody, I'm full of contradictions. I've dropped mushrooms, but I refuse painkillers for surgery. That was in the old days. I do not currently partake in any form of psychedelic. I feel that, well, I totally support everybody's journeys. Like, honestly, 100% seriously. If a friend comes to me and says, they want to do a medicine journey, and I intuitively feel like it's on for them, like, go for it. I will drive you. I will hold the bucket that you puke into if you really feel this is right for you. And I believe that for a lot of people it is. For me, I'm not into it. In the old days, I wasn't so into the psychedelics because I really wanted to stay in control of my faculties. And these days, it's pretty much the same story, but for a different reason. I feel that when you get onto that astral highway, there are disembodied energies that might want to jump on your back and come into your life. And some of those disembodied energies, they feed off of havoc, and they want to create fear and disease and challenge because that's their mustard, So I'd rather not run that risk. I've done a lot of work on my spiritual path to, do the cleansing. Everything from the plant medicine that is essential oils and the salt baths and the consistent prayer and meditation and the kriyas and the lunges and all the things, all the heart-centered things, all the devotional things. And I feel that it is wise for me to just do the boring, simple, consistent practices of showing up every day in those various and focused ways. For me, it's really just sit my ass down on my meditation cushion or do my meditative walk and do my cleansing and, try and be a good guy. I've done all the new age things. I've done the aura oil. I don't even know what that was for. Did the Ouija boards in my 20s. I went through some wacky channeling experiences where I was channeling other beings. That was not safe. That was not wise. I could really clearly feel other entities coming into me, and I would sit and talk in circle to my mom's friends. That all started with messing around with a Ouija board. My mom and a girlfriend were, I'll take responsibility. We all had this Ouija board. We were all living together. We were like roommates. And my mom and a friend were having a little Ouija board session one night. And I walked by and I was like, hey, I'll get in on the action. And I touched the planchette and it went bazonkers. It was just like magnetic, zing and zing and zing and zing, spelling, things out. And I felt so powerful because, I just walked into the room and the spirits entered and it was dark. It wasn't a good idea. And that led to, I got instructed to channel. And I've actually never talked about this. Here we go. This is what happens when I just turn on the mic and talk about me. I wouldn't recommend it because I could feel entities entering into me. And I started to get cravings for weird things. Like I wanted to smoke. I wasn't a smoker. I wanted to drink. I wasn't really a drinker. And then I just needed to put a stop to it. And what happened was a more seasoned, cleaner, you could say, more evolved channeler friend of ours reached out to me and kind of gave me a really loving smackdown. And she said that her guides had instructed her to instruct me, to advise me to knock it off. And I just like, this is serious. And I felt a little bit ashamed and I felt actually really grateful. I was evolved enough. I'd be like, yeah, this is like some lowbrow stuff. I got to knock it off, and like never again. No interest in being a channel for other people. I mean, they're just floating around. Just because an energy is not currently here does not make them more advanced, light-filled, or, luminous. Yeah. That was training for a real initiation where I got duped by a so-called energy worker. They were an energy worker, but they were really working for some shadowy stuff. And I had a lot of crystals in my life. I now have not one in my life. I no longer refer to psychics or mediums, although those were very growthful consultations I had on my journey. So I'm not knocking any of that. Just where I'm at now, I just really want to keep it simple. And it's not always easy keeping it simple. I would love to have somebody on speed dial to give me some prognosticative stuff. But you know who I got on speed dial now? My higher self. It's really up to me. I got to stand on my own 2 feet. More than that, I want to stand on my own 2 feet. It's more efficient in the long run. And I'm in this for the long run. I have knelt at the feet of teachers, literally knelt at the feet of a Tibetan Buddhist Lama. In all earnestness, I asked him, these are my exact words, will you teach me about the heart of the matter? So a very moving experience, actually, to move into that kind of devotion. He told me to recite the Prajnaparamita Sutra 100,000 times. I can say that in just accessible girl talk. Prajnaparamita Sutra. Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha. Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha. Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha. I did it. But I never saw that teacher again. Just because I wasn't called to take Buddhist vows. Yeah. I could see around that time that somewhere between all the yoga classes, yoga is still my main jam, although, I'm in and out. But between the yoga and the support calls with my shaman at the time and guided visualizations, my spiritual path had just become another to-do list, And I became aware of this conflict between sincere spiritual aspiration, higher, desiring higher, and really this lower compulsion to improve, and obsessiveness, almost neurotic self-helping. And I just realized I was really tired. I was still devoted to knowing more, always more, but mostly, I was tired. And it's usually that kind of fatigue, those kind of burnout phases that bring us to our knees where we can see from that lower perspective that we need to get into alignment with our higher self. When you are in hell, you commit to heaven. Palate cleanser things. I'm an only child. I always wished to have a little brother. My mom and dad got knocked up in high school and got married when they were respectively 18 and 20. Just turned 18 and just turned 20. My mom quit high school to have me, and that was really influential, actually, because I was toilet trained in the bathrooms of St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario, where my mother was going to get her Bachelor of Arts in Social Work. I'm French Canadian, but that means nothing, really. My French is not great, but when I have been in Paris, I can get by. I don't have a car. I love not having a car. There's a great car share program in Vancouver where I've lived for 20-some years. I love just getting into the car, going where I'm going, and just walking away from it. The additional story behind that is, I talked about this, I think, in the last pod session, was, I had this really schmancy car, and I was simplifying my life, and my kid was 16. I was like, there's no way I'm going to let you drive this. And then I got a much more reasonable car. I got a VW Golf. I really loved it. It was actually one of my favorite cars. I liked it more than my fancy sports car. And my kid racked that up. Everybody was fine. Everybody walked away from the accident. And I said to him, and he's 19 now-ish. And I said, you know what? I think it's time for you to get your own car. And I'm not going to have one. It's worked out beautifully. I'm a dog person, but I live in an apartment now and I don't have a dog. I actually, even if I could have pets here, I love knowing that at 10:30 at night when it's pouring rain outside in the depths of winter in Vancouver, I'm not standing in the rain saying, go potty. I was a vegetarian for 12 years, and then I was a vegan for about 4 years, and then I felt like I was going to die, and I've been eating meat for about a year, and now I'm thinking about going back to vegetarianism again. I'll do a whole pod on that. It's been a lot of conflict that has led to a lot less judgment of self and others. I love public speaking. I feel alive and useful when I have a microphone in my hand. I'm a great leader. I'm a great visionary. I am a terrible manager of people. My way of managing people and getting stuff done is to say, okay, here's a vision. This is where I want to go. Let me know when it's done. And there's a few steps in between vision, execution, launch, and delivered. For that, I have an amazing team. By the way, if you would love to know more about how I create and my team gets everything done in a heart-centered way, from abundance, profitability to workshops and retreats, we have a mastermind now. This is a new thing that has started in the last couple months. If you head to daniellelaporte.com/mastermind, you'll see what we're offering. We get together once a month where myself or one of my team or an authority, an expert in psychology or coaching or business development come in, and we just throw down on all the teachables. Then we have open office hours where you can talk about the heart-centered stuff, how to be a better facilitator, listener, workshop leader, yoga instructor, to the nuts and bolts of business, marketing, algorithms, building your list, et cetera, et cetera. That's daniellelaporte.com/mastermind. Some people after a speaking gig ask me about my mom and dad because I don't talk about my parents much. I have a great relationship with my parents. I'm here for them in every possible way. It has not always been easy with both of my folks. I left home when I was 16. Technically, I don't even know why I have to say technically, I was a runaway. And I went and lived with my best friend at the time. Her parents took me in, and I finished out high school. And then I moved to the West Coast and moved in with my mom. There's been lots of healing, and I respect my parents' privacy and their lives. They're just legit cool, still really young people. And yeah, that's all I got to say about my parents. How about we do a hard right turn into some poetry? I have this piece called Bride of Fire, and I think this sums a lot of my life up. Of course, if you want the printable version of this, head to the free love notes section on my site, daniellelaporte.com/love notes. Bride of Fire. The Descent. The year that I realized I was in the underworld, the man asked me, "Why are you traveling alone? Are you lost?" "No, I am healing," I answered. "This is how it's done." But really, I thought my aloneness was a punishment. The Reckoning. The year I had my bones slowly broken and reset one by one. The man asked me, "Why are you in the hospital alone? Are you lost?" "No, I'm healing," I answered. "This is how it's done." and I was starting to believe that I was being reborn. The rising. The year that I always danced by firelight. The man asked me, "Why are you dancing alone? Are you lost?" "No, I am healing," I answered. "This is how it's done." And I became certain that I was the bride of fire. I think to round it out, I should give you a poem that I wrote for my man, for Mr. Will. Before I do that, can I just tell you all the things that I'm up to right now? It's taken a decade to get to this kind of clarity and focus. I have 5 pillars of my offering, my vocation, our business. I really think of my life now as Danielle Laporte and Company. The 5 pillars are as follows. I have heart-centered classes and courses. Classes happen 2 Thursdays a month. You can just drop in. It's like $20. We talk about forgiving and dissolving relationship patterns and how to connect with your higher self in a reliable way. I also have courses, more methodological, robust programs where you learn at your own pace. The newest one is the Nourish System course, and it is the juice. I really feel that if every person on the planet focused on just regulating their own nervous system, ascension, world peace. Second pillar of my life, I have the heart-centered membership. It is a spiritual support system. Members get all of the classes and meditations and spiritual practices for free. We get together twice a month. We throw down on deep questions. The community is sophisticated and lit up, and it is really a kind of spiritual intimacy. And I've so fallen in love with these people. Third pillar of my offering is all of our spiritual practices, all of which I co-create with VS, the energy healer I've been with for 8 years. The meditations, visualizations, prayers, kits on how to create your own heart-centered altar, water blessings, how to get into alignment with the elements. Such beautiful, rich stuff. Commune with your soul. Clear out the residue kind of stuff. Fourth pillar of my existence is our heart-centered mastermind, which is in service to conscious business and careering. And this is where we talk about what it means to embody heart-centered values in our work in the world, whether you're a high school teacher or a CEO, or you're an influencer who wants to bring their heart to bear in Zoom calls and weekly sessions to have conversations about resilience and resolve and compassion. The fifth pillar is our heart-centered curriculum for leaders. This is really the result of a decade of taking the desire map process and methodology and evolving that into 34 different practices that people are using to guide their teams and their families. We've been working with this in big, like global scale corporations and then in small book circle kind of settings. My team and I and this community of heart-centered leaders who have been with me for many years are really setting out to start a movement in heart-centered leaders. And you do that by restoring the nervous system and creating heart-centered tools for reflection and resilience for individuals, and then they show up and they influence the culture of corporations and work in the world. Super lit up about it. And before I give you my love poem for my honey, you know where to find me, daniellelaporte.com/subscribe. I throw down every Wednesday with a wisdom post, and every Friday we have Sacred Weekends, one of my favorite new things. And then we have a newsletter for our mastermind community called Centered, where we're looking at trends and tips and strategies and ideas for bringing the heart intelligence to bear in all work situations. Okay. Enough about me. I hope that was helpful. I hope you can hear yourself in my struggles and expansions in some way, I hope that my story gets us on common ground, helps us unite to desire higher. And in my way, I hope to alleviate your suffering and amplify your joy. And speaking of joy, this is one of the first poems I wrote for my mister. By the way, a life detail there is we're not married. We hope to be married someday. We will be married someday. We live separately. He lives 2 blocks away from me because essentially my son, who is going on 20, is my roommate, and he has a teenage son. And the way we got it going is really working for all of us. So we're together lots, and then we have these beautiful spaces to breathe, and I get a lot work done, and then we come back together and we make out for 4 days in a row. You can find this poem, which is called Breaking Open, in the section of my website, daniellelaporte.com/love notes. Lots of free poems, prayers, how-tos, bullet points, printables, all things there for you. Breaking Open for Will. And now my heart is something that is leavened from innocence and longing, fulfilled, golden, warm. You hold it in your hands and partake of me. And some days I feel like Mother Nature herself, providing, endlessly flowing. And others, at night, when I forget about oneness, I feel like the bread that you break. Either way, nourishment is for certain. And either way, we are always opening. And either way, there is just this feast of loving. Thank you for being here. Always, always, with love, Danielle. Thank you so much for listening, for feeling, for spreading the word. With love.